I am Dr. Orode. I started Successful Student Mentoring in, Tochi, remind me, was it 2017 or 2016? I think it was 2016. Trading as successful student tuition. And it stemmed up from my own personal story of prejudice and the challenges that I faced in my PhD it was quite significant to say the least, having extreme supervisory difficulties and challenges, and also my experience over the years, I think it's over 15 years now in the UK, from A levels to, as I already said, doing my PhD and now being an academic in the United Kingdom as well, with research experience. And I just felt that there wasn't really enough people sharing their journeys for new international students. My first passion is my home country, Nigeria, having grown up with just me and my mom. My dad passed away when I was 13. And I just wanted to create a platform where we could share our journeys, and also where I and others from sharing our stories could be able to support other students from different parts of the world, especially Nigeria, who would like to study abroad, but do not know where to start from. So that's it, basically. It's offering support, offering resources. And I've been doing this on and off since 2016. Help people with their CVs, their scholarship applications, a few career journeys, career advice, PhD advice. Tochi will talk a bit more about her own experience with me. And what else? Not just people coming to the UK to study and work, but also that sort of holistic approach to mentoring, not just giving people fish, but teaching them how to fish. I think that's very important. Teaching people how to fish, how to do the searches yourself, to be equipped to write CVs that recruiters want to read. And I think it's also important that we don't only see the UK as you study here and you must work here. If that's your dream, that's completely fine, or if it's your calling. But also, Tochi studied here, but she's working in the US now, thank God. I also have someone else who studied in the UK but moved back to Nigeria, and she has had quite a good career. Hopefully one day she'll be able to come and chat with us. Okay, I'm going to stop there. And presenting Dr. Ozulumba. She always makes me filled with joy, I think. She's had her own journey. Every journey is unique. So Dr. Ozulumba will share aspects of her story from Nsukka to Virginia. We were just talking about this last night. Tochi is an amazing person. She has put her faith to work, I would say. She's really put her faith to work. And I think that was one of the first things we had the privilege God used me for us to work on. And since then, she's designed her own life, basically. And she'll share some of that with you now. Tochi, over to you.
Thank you for the kind words. I'm trying not to blush. Thank you. It's been a privilege meeting you and knowing you. So let's start this way. So the first time I heard about Dr. Orode was when I'll start, then I'll talk about my journey. So I was like a new international student. I just came to the University of Brighton. So I'm from Nigeria. I went to University of Nigeria and Nsukka for my bachelor's and master's degrees in biochemistry. And then while doing my master's degree, I knew that I wanted to go further in research. I wanted to like do more research, have more research experience. And one of the ways that I thought that would be possible would be securing a postgraduate like study scholarship to study abroad. And so I applied to like different countries, and then I got a scholarship from like a university called University of Brighton. And before the like, because I had a circle of friends and we always applied to like different universities all over the world. So so it was only the day that I actually got the admission, like the scholarship, that I realized, oh, let me look up where Brighton is in the UK. And so, all right, fast forward, October 2015, that's like 7 years ago. Wow. October 2015, I started as a PhD student in the, I think, School of Pharmacy and Biomolecular Sciences. And I remember walking into like the shared space where like PhD students, so like generally for a university then, like PhD students in a department or like in a school, as we call it, all share the same spaces. So like they could be maybe working on like a chemistry project or a pharmacy project or biomaterials project, like, but we all had like the shared office space. And I think that was good because it helped us like cross-pollinate ideas, and you get to see people outside of your own like direct lab mates. And so I remember walking in there, and then I looked at the like the wall that had the sitting chat, and I saw someone's name, oh, Orode, and I was like, oh, there's a Nigerian in this place. Like, I'm not alone. And then I was like, okay, I have to make sure I meet this person. And then I think you were writing your PhD thesis at the time, so you were like off and on. But eventually I got to meet her, and then became like, I guess I'm like the first graduate or product of successful students mentoring, and then the rest, as they say, is history. So that's my story. I came from University of Nigeria, Nsukka. I got a PhD scholarship at the University of Brighton, and then I'm currently working as a research associate at the University of Virginia, Charlottesville. So that's sort of like my journey, Nsukka to Virginia via Brighton. So yeah.
Amazing. Tochi hasn't touched on the practicalities of finding a scholarship, but that's her general introduction. So I think we have a layout here. Let's find it and follow that so that we'll give our viewers. So today is quite short. We won't be here for more than 45 minutes. So 30 minutes, but we might just have an extra because we started late. So maybe we'll finish around in like maybe 30 minutes. However, we're giving you a general introduction, and then we'll go more into detail at our next Saturday live. So by God's grace, this will be a frequent events and webinars that we'll be having, okay, about different steps in your application process, what you need to keep in mind and all of that. So I will explain my own journey to a PhD scholarship, and then Tochi will, I think, will go into more detail about the practicalities, how many applications she did, you know, what really helped her in her final application to be able to be successful. Maybe there were no tricks at all. Maybe it was just a matter of that cyclic application and not giving up. I was giving a talk yesterday, and one of the recurrent themes that kept coming up was not giving up on our dreams. And oftentimes it can be very difficult to stay there, and we always need that. Tochi has already talked about the importance of that support network. Other people were doing it, and also during the PhD, finding a support network as well was also important. So I did my secondary school in Nigeria, Nigeria Navy Secondary School, Ojo. For me, I was always interested in the sciences. So it was I just found that was my strength. And my mom really helped to foster that. And I'm always so grateful for my mom. Following on from that, I moved to the UK and studied my A-levels. And then, you know, I applied for medicine. I was unsuccessful, which was really painful. I got my interview at Cambridge University, but I think I wasn't fully prepared. And also God had a plan, you know, and maybe later in our Saturday lives, I'll share more fully about how that has sort of shaped itself. Because I was paying international fees. So I also have experience of that, a single mom. So that's not easy. Started off with biomedical sciences. And in my second year, I got to know about a placement. And then I went on to do a placement at the Health Protection Agency. And I think that session was just, that whole design was God, because I also met someone, you know, and I think that person I met must have been an angel, because she just happened to disappear and I could never contact her again. But that meeting set me on course for, excuse me, the rest of my career, basically. You know, I did a placement here at the health, then it was called the Health Protection Agency. I think now it's called the UK Health Security something. And it was there that my interest in research really began to blossom. I remember that day in the room when they were like, how many of you would like to do a PhD? And, you know, being an international student and thinking about the money at the same time, we'd paid A-levels, BSc, you know, my mom working extra hours. I always say she has the varicose veins on her leg to prove it. And it's not easy. So, you know, and also me trying to support working part-time as much as I could to afford rent and all of that. I just want to give you the real aspects of life. Perhaps in sharing my story, you also see that it's possible, number one, with God, and just some of the things I had to overcome. And I just kind of raised up my hand. You know, when you're like working in faith, but you're like, I don't really know how this is going to come to pass. So I'm just going to raise up my hand. And from there, the journey really began. So this was after my second year, I was on placement in the year 2009, 2010. And I just began to search online. I began to make it known to my then supervisors at the Health Protection Agency that, you know, I'm interested in research. Do they have any sort of funding for international students? And majority of what I got was no, no, no. I was directed to the Wellcome Trust, and that in itself, excuse me, is quite competitive, very competitive. And, you know, this was somebody, you know, I had not even finished my final year. This is my undergraduate on placement, but I'd already started searching because I came to understand the challenges of finding funding, especially for someone who was already in the UK. So majority of what I was seeing was you have to apply from your home country. So that was then. Perhaps even still now, maybe there are advantages of applying from where you are in Africa and Nigeria. And I just kept on, but it was very, very demotivating. Always seeing that, oh, when you read through, oh, this looks exciting. And then you get to the bottom and you don't fulfill the eligibility criteria. So that's another thing to check. Because I didn't waste time applying for so many, because I always looked at the eligibility criteria. Now, some people may have a testimony of they applied even though they were not eligible and they got it. But in most cases, it's not. I think for me, one of the main things I was doing was letting my superiors know about my enthusiasm, and that enthusiasm was supported by what I was producing, my work. And I think having that placement was already giving me research experience. So without knowing, my CV was being strengthened. Now, the second part to that was, as I was finishing my placement, I also got involved in a particular research project. And then with the help of, I think, what was his name? Oh, Professor, I'll remember later because I have to give them credit. There was Dr. Julie Logan, and there was another guy, this professor. Oh, he was so great. It was in the Molecular Identification Services unit. And with his guidance, I was able to design a final year research project. So in that way, I was kind of ahead of my peers because they would have to be in final year and wait for final year projects to be advertised as they do then in the UK, in that particular university, and then students have to apply. I was being proactive, taking the initiative of what I was interested in, and I asked, and thankfully they accepted, and we moved on from there. So I submitted it to my then course director at the University of Brighton, and we now started to distribute it in the uni who would be interested in supervising my project. Long story short, got in contact with the supervisor, and he said he was going to supervise the project. So by the time I finished my placement and came back from my final year, before they were even telling people to start final year projects, Orode was already in a lab enjoying herself with pipettes and bacteria. So I really thank God for that, giving me that pushed to be proactive in that sense, because as an international student, oftentimes you feel like you have to be one step ahead, kind of being very proactive. I tell people, let people around you know what your interests are and show it with the seriousness of what you're doing in your work. And with that, I think when I finished my final year, I got a grant, a small grant for a summer research project. So that was building my CV as well, enhancing my research skills, getting me acquainted with the vocabulary of research in my field, microbiology. Then I hadn't really known exactly what I wanted to focus on. So we'll talk about that another day, like the specific topic. I just knew that I was interested in microbiology. I like bugs, and that was it. But I used to remember that I used to feel like, when people ask, what do you want to do a PhD in? And I don't have that specific topic. I'm like, so, but I was just reading and moving on with the opportunities that presented themselves. And I remember another down, there are ups and then there are downs. Another down was when I finished my master's and I was still searching for PhD scholarships to no avail. I started to actively apply. And it was just rejections or you wouldn't hear back. But that my supervisor knew I was interested in a PhD. And then, I think then the school itself supported him to, supervise me for a PhD. But then the final university just said, oh no, we don't have funding for international students. And then I had to do a master's. So I chose to do an MRes and not an MSc because I knew I was interested in research. And we can talk about that another day. Then what I did after that was do the MRes, and then they said they were going to start funding international students. So I applied. I was in a better stead because I was already at university. I knew the work that my current supervisor was working on. So I had an awareness of the research that was going on. And that was great. And yeah, I was used to the environment. I had the skills. So sometimes it might be at your advantage to start from where you are. Let people where you are know you're interested. So that's my journey in very summarized of how I came to get my own PhD scholarship. So Tochi, over to you.
Yeah, like listening to it, like it's like an interesting path. And I think some of the things that stood out to me, just sort of reiterating what you've said, because I also see like similar experiences in my own journey, like letting people around you know like your experience and your interests, no matter how good you are or you are, if people don't know you're good, when it's time to recommend you, like no one is going to bring up your name. So even if it's just as like letting, like in my case, for example, letting my circle of friends know that, okay, I'm interested in applying for scholarship. If you see any adverts, send them my way. And interestingly, that was how I got to know about this particular, position at Brighton that I applied to. So when I was interested in applying for scholarships, I think I started around, 2014. And that first year, there was like a lot of rejections. You open the email and you see, oh, we regret to, or unsuccessfully, or it's been denied and all of that. So so that's something I would just say, like there's been there'll probably be lots of rejections for people along the way, just so you know. So when I'll just take it back to the beginning. When I decided that I wanted to do research, the first thing was, okay, I wanted to do research. And what kind of research areas was I interested in then? Like I did my undergrad and master's degrees in biochemistry. So I knew I wanted to do something along that line. But then also, I think one thing, especially for people who maybe, if you're the first person to go to grad school in your family, like the training you have for your undergraduate and your master's, or even if you're coming straight from undergraduate, it just like you learn like the basic general principles across like a broader discipline. But it doesn't mean that for your grad school, like you're restricted to this person. So let's say, oh, I'm biochemistry. Oh, I'm only going to apply to projects that are biochemistry themed. Because what your undergrad training does, it prepares you to like, you understand basic concepts across like a broad area, biology, chemistry, physics, for some people, like some material science, some engineering. And so in my case, for example, I was not just applying to like biochemistry focused projects, like, oh, genetic engineering or like molecular biology. Like I was open to opportunities. And so, for example, the PhD project that I ended up working on, was actually more of biomaterial science. So you're meshing principles of biology alongside material science. And like, I knew nothing about material science because of course, like I came from a biochemistry background, but then just seeing like one thing I would say that helped was like when I was applying to a broad range of offers or like opportunities, like I said, but then also critically studying the description of the advert or like the call for applications, and then checking, is this something that I could do? And then also thinking about like, when you look at those applications, you think, is this a project that I'm interested in? Is this something that I want to do? And then asking yourself, okay, so if I'm interested in this project, if it's something I want to apply to, what are the things that I have? What are the things that I need to learn? And how can I like frame or position myself to the reviewer that, okay, these are my skills and I'm willing to learn these. And just something that I also want to mention, because it differs across, I think, some universities or like some regions. So usually like in North America, people tend to apply to like a department or like a professor, and then you ask for projects in the lab. Like you ask, rather, you look at their profile or research areas, and then you say you're interested in that. They might not be like a specific defined project. But then also you could also see situations where they need PhD students to work on particular projects. And that was where my own PhD scholarship came in. So there was a particular project that people needed, like they needed someone to work on. And it was like a combination of biology and material science. So going back, so when I looked at the job description of the advert, I knew like I had some of the skills that they wanted, but then also I didn't have the material science. But I made sure to convey in my personal statement, like where I was coming from and why I was interested in what they were doing and how I was looking forward to like learning all the skills and applying them. And then also I remember for my specific scholarship application, one of the documents that we needed to submit was like a research proposal. So based on like the information that was listed in the advert, we're supposed to prepare like a research proposal. And so just going through the advert, like I read up on all the techniques. So this is sort of like being proactive, yes, you may not have like the technical skills, but then you're a graduate student, like you're a prospective graduate student. Nobody expects you to know everything. But more important is that you have at least like the sufficient academic training, and then also your willingness and enthusiasm to learn. So that's one of the key things that people look out for when trying to hire graduate students. And so what I did then was to prepare a mock research proposal. And then based on the techniques, I read up on all the techniques like the electron microscopy, the confocal, the material character, like things that I'd never heard of, because I was like material science, and that was definitely not my field. I was doing like pathways and enzymes as a biochemist. But then just being able to show that I was interested, I was willing to learn, and that I had these other skills that I was coming with. And then also when I was shortlisted for the interview, rather, I also conveyed that enthusiasm. Okay, yes, I do not have this skill, but I'm willing to learn, I'm interested in this. I like the work you do in your lab. And thankfully I got the scholarship, and that like stopped all my search. Because when the thing with this is that you might have so many rejections, but when you get that one yes, and that's it, like it's over, like you don't need to search anymore, the journey is over. So that's sort of my own experience, sort of like how I started searching for scholarships. I signed up to all like the scholarship websites, I had friends that signed up to the websites as well. We were like forwarding emails back and forth and with each other, like, oh, I think you should apply for this. Oh, I think this would be a great fit for you. And that really helped in my case, because I was having imposter syndrome, like, oh, I don't know material science, like I can't do this. And thankfully, because I got the email in my inbox, and then a friend of mine, Dozie, said, you should apply for this, like you should. So that extra push from somebody else who knew what I was looking out for, because this is a case of like people knew this is what I wanted. And so that extra push from my friend, Dozie, oh, you should apply for this. I gave it a try, I put in my best, and the rest is history. So definitely re-echoing what Dr. Orode said, letting people in your network know what you're interested in. Also being proactive, going the extra step, making sure that you're putting yourself in the best possible light to your prospective like interviewers and reviewers. Definitely those are tips I would say are very helpful, at least for me. And then also learning to embrace the rejections as they come, rather, because all you need is one yes. It sounds like a cliche, but then when you get that one yes, then that's it. I can't remember how many I applied for, but then even when I was searching for like a job after my PhD, it was the same thing. I have a folder full of over 70 applications plus. of rejections, and it's like, so that it's just a part of life. You just keep going until you get the one yes. So I'll stop talking here and pass the mic over to Dr. Orode.
Wow, I think Tochi, there was one of your friends, I can't remember her name, and she said she did over 100 applications. She's one of your networks, isn't she? She's in your network. And she had like over 100 applications. Amazing. So I hope people can see us. I think, okay, Tochi is still there. Okay, I thought you were frozen. Did you hear what I said? I said, one of your friends, I read something on her Facebook page one time that she had over 100 applications.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
amazing. Yeah. I don't think I made up to 100, but I know that perhaps it's because I was always looking at the eligibility criteria, and I applied not just UK, Europe, but at the end of the day, for me, it was where I was. And that's something we might touch on in another session about the different strategies for scholarship search, which is I call it the direct and the indirect. So she mentioned her friend Dozier. He's spoken to us on successful students mentoring before. He went through the indirect routes. So we'll talk about that later. Tochi, do you want to maybe list 2 or 3 websites that you used as well? That might help some people.
Okay, it's been a long time, but there's scholarshippositions.com. Because we used to get that email every Monday morning. I remember you wake up on Monday, you look at your emails, like all the list of scholarships you need to apply for. There's Scholars for Dev, but then also you can, because sometimes, especially for maybe universities in North America, it might be a better route to like maybe think about some universities you're interested in and then go to their departments and then see if they have a graduate call, like a graduate application roll call. And then also just thinking about it, we definitely have lists of these scholarship websites in one of the documents from the SS Mentoring store. So if you're interested, you can also look it up as well. And yeah, so there are a list of databases, and then as well as like different websites that you could check out. So go look up or go check out our SS Mentoring shop, and we can also like put the link after today's webinar as well. So
fantastic. I know Tochi has begun to talk on research proposals, which is great. Some of the things that you put in, it's fantastic that she's touched on that as well, because I think that one needs a workshop on its own. So if you're interested, just put a thumbs up on whatever platform you're on, Facebook or YouTube, a thumbs up, and then we'll have a workshop where we'll actually show you examples of those research proposals, because that in itself is another big part of finding the scholarship is one step. Then the applying is another step. Sometimes you have to do a personal statement. Sometimes you have to do with a personal statement and a research proposal. You include your CV for some. So it can be quite a number of documents that you have to include. Some countries require that you have publications. However, when I was with the UK, they didn't. Some misconceptions. Some people think you have to have a master's before you can apply for a PhD. It helps, but okay, so she's already telling you no. So you don't have to. So I think today was more of an introduction. And what would we have a question on our list. It says, what would I do differently? Feelings and we had during the process. I think, what would I do differently? I don't know, because to get to that step, I think I was already very aware of what I was doing. So for me, I don't think I'll do anything differently in my search, but if I remember, I will share it at our next Saturday live. But feelings, definitely that I had. Doubts, don't you already talk about imposter syndrome? It's very real in anything you're doing. Am I good enough? No, I'm not good enough. I should probably talk to you about her first week. We'll finish in a few minutes. The first week, I remember she was sharing with me some things about her instrument and whether she should ask questions, but she can tell you that herself. I'm not going to share her story. For me, during the process, oftentimes I was quite scared, like, oh, what if it doesn't happen? But I think what helped me was to just keep on. And for me as well, being a Christian, I felt like it was also a faith activity, just putting my faith to work and seeing what would happen. I don't know if I felt like it was a do or die affair. I don't remember feeling that, but that was a long time ago. So, but I knew that it was something I really wanted. I really wanted it. It was beneficial for me academically. It was also beneficial for me to keep on being with my mom. Family is one of my main values. So it was beneficial for me in those ways. And also, I think because even though there were doubts, I continually kept praying on it, that the Lord would guide me. And I remember that day in cell meeting, then with my friends, some people might call it home fellowship or something like that. When I got the notice from the university that they would start offering scholarships for international students, I remember I was reading one book called How to Pray Effectively. And I just read the chapter on prayer of agreement. So I wasn't shy. I told my network then, I was like, I really want this. Can we pray together? And the prayer was answered. So as much as I was keeping it firm in the spirit, there are times when I would feel like, oh my God, I'm so stressed out. I'm tired of doing this, almost giving up. And my mom would encourage me, or my network in church then would encourage me through the prayer. And then just me, myself in my own space, continuing to search for opportunities that were available. So I will hand over to Tochi now to share with you her feelings and also her first week experience, because we have different experiences. She came directly from Nigeria, which is also challenging in its own way. And then me, I was already here, which is a new set of challenges when you're already here finding your own scholarship. So I'm thankful that we can bring both perspectives. Okay, Tochi, go ahead.
Okay, so thinking about what I would do differently, I think maybe believing myself more, not giving to imposter syndrome, because at the end of the day, you can do it. If you believe you can, and with God on your side, there is nothing you cannot do. And that's one of the lessons I learned from my PhD, that there is nothing I cannot learn. Once I have a good someone to train me, I know that I can do it. So that's one thing PhD teaches you. You learn new things every day. So I think those are the things I would do differently, like believing more and not giving in to imposter syndrome. The feelings I had, like I explained, self-doubt, also stress, because the internet connection in Nigeria is not the best. Like, it's not yet at its best, just to put it that way. And so I remember sometimes when I had to do applications, I had to go to like a hotspot, like somewhere where I knew the internet connection was really strong. So I'll leave my house like 7 a.m. or something to go there and then do all my applications and like do all the research. And then I had to start work around like 8:30 or so. So it was always like that extra trying to find what could work for me in terms of the internet access. But then I always just encourage myself, knowing that this is just for a while, until once you get the scholarship, then it's over. And also when I had my interview as well, to be honest, let's say maybe I had doubts. Like, I didn't think I was good enough, because I felt like, I'm coming from Nigeria. This is like, look at all the techniques they're calling it, electron microscopy, this, that. I don't even know these techniques. And then I'm willing to learn, but I don't know them. So I felt a bit like let down, like after my interview, to be honest. And I was like, okay, yeah, I know the technical, I know the whole idea and concept of the project, but I just didn't have like the practical experience in the material science aspect, like before the interview. And so I felt a bit discouraged. So I was really surprised when I was asked that day for another like interview with the head of the graduate school. And I was like, oh, if these people are trying to give me a trick interview, like, I'm done, it's over. Like, I don't care. And then it was like, oh, you did quite well. And then, we're granting you the scholarship. So it's something about like, sometimes when you feel like, oh, I feel so bad, maybe it's just like the imposter syndrome talking, like, and you actually did quite well. Because at the end of the day, once you're enthusiastic and like you're willing to learn, you'll always be like a great addition to any lab. And so those are like the feelings I had and what I would do differently. And once I started my first week, so like, there was a lot of planning that had to go into place. Yes, you got the scholarship, but then you have like, once you get a scholarship and you get the admission, like it's not like this flurry of activities, things you need to do. You need to do maybe some health checks. I needed to do some health checks, like tuberculosis and something. I had to apply for like a visa, but then leading to the visa, you had to keep money like in an account for a certain period. So there was a lot of things that you have to do. Like there's a lot of planning, towards that you have to do towards actually leaving the country on a particular day. And so when I remember leaving the country, when I landed at London Gatwick Airport, I was like, God, it's so cold. Like that was it was so cold. I was like, God, I'm so cold. And I actually, it's funny because I had the same thought yesterday. I was walking, I'm like, it's so cold. And I remember when I used to walk then to the bus stop, like when I was in Brighton, and it was so cold. And I was like, it was like the worst like 5 to 10 minutes of walk, because I'm like, I'm so cold, I'm so cold, I'm so cold, I miss Nigeria. But then with time, we just get used to it. So that's something I think if you were thinking about moving to like a country with a different sort of like, I guess, like climate, just think about the weather and you're just sort of preparing your mind, bring warm clothes and all of that. But yeah, once I started my first week, we started with induction. So it was sort of like easing into it. But then when I knew it was time for lab, I was like, I was a bit scared. But then thankfully I had good, very good, we had good technicians, like good people in our lab who trained me. So once you're trained on how to do things and you're in a good lab environment, really like with time, you just get used to it. And then you start training other people and you start sharing your experiences on like Saturday lives and all of that. So that's it for me. Yeah.
All right. Somebody was asking about what about applying for master's degree? So I think it's the same steps. You apply the same things to find if you're looking for funding. With masters in the UK, Tochi can point at things to keep in mind for the US. We're finishing in 15 minutes. But it's the same process. It's the same process. It may not be as intense, to be fair. It's not as intense as with the PhD. But with funding, in my own experience, I find that there's more fun. I think there's more funding for PhDs than masters. With masters, some university give part discounts for the fees. However, I know that I mentored someone they were here, so they're not classified as international student, but they still had to apply for a particular scholarship for a university. So hopefully I'll be able to get in touch. He's finished his master's a long time ago now and he's working, for him to come and share his own perspective on that. Because I remember we walked through his scholarship statements for that application and he was successful. He wasn't successful for the first one, but later he told me he just used what we had worked on to apply for another one. So you see, it's the same sort of unsuccessful. Doesn't mean I'm like, yeah, that's it. You might still continue with other things you're doing in your life, like your job, but you have this dream at the back of your mind and you're still open to making sure that you are devoting that 30 minutes or 1 hour every day to scan through the databases for opportunities that are available out there, setting up your email alerts. Some of these databases you can subscribe to so that you're not checking it every day. Instead, the emails are coming to you. So you have to devote that time of 30 minutes, 1 hour every day to check. Even when I wanted to study for A-levels here, I was researching schools and then I was 17, 18 after secondary school. So I was applying the same principles, going to the cyber cafe. Then we did not have phone to be doing google.com on your house. I was traveling I was living in Lagos then. I was living with my aunt in Vaux Barracks and I would go to Festac. Sometimes I'll use the cafe in Vaux Barracks, go there at least twice a week to go and check online and search and read up schools, read up about A-levels, read up about what I needed to know, what I needed to be searching right now. different things that I was doing. So it's the same principles. I know that we're giving you a PhD perspective, our own story, but it's the same principles, the same things that are applied for my A-level on sort of the same principles that apply, but on steroids for finding a PhD scholarship. And because I stayed in that frame of mind, that mindset of doing the work, you know, and just trusting God as well, putting that faith to work by doing the work, basically. It was successful. I continued with other aspects of my life. When I was still trying to get my visa, student visa, moved to the UK to start my A-levels, I was also doing other things. I went to computer school. I went and did a database management course, web design, C++, because I was also interested in, I'm also interested in IT. I mean, all this setup we're setting up here. But ask them, they know some of the other things we do. I'm also interested in it. I may not do it as at a professional level, but I have the professional certificate, all those your C++, web design, all of that. I was doing that as well, but keeping my focus on what it was I wanted to do. So it's the same, I would say the same principles of commitment and hard work apply with getting the funding for masters or even researching on the schools as well. There's I don't know if I've published this yet, to document our steps. Oh, yes, I have. There's a guide in the SS Mentoring shop. Yes, there's a guide there on a template to use to sort of assess different universities in the UK, things you should be thinking about. There's a guide in the SS Mentoring shop. So that link I shared, there's another guide there that tells you, things you should be thinking about, accommodation, all of that. There was a webinar we did a while ago now about thinking about accommodation. How far is the house from the bus stop? Things like that. Little things that you not imagine. London is not the only place in the UK. Housing costs, choosing the city. So keep all of those things in mind when you're searching for a course. Housing costs, very, very important. One of your main expenses. What else? I think anything you wanted to add, Tochi, to that?
Yeah, I was going to mention, like, thinking about other things like housing costs, maybe the community, like, is there like a lot of diverse, let's say, ethnic groups within that area, or thinking about, I guess, like the weather as well, because some parts of the UK, some parts are colder, like up north, and then some parts are like sort of don't get the worst heat when they're not the worst affected, using that word, when cold comes. Or even, like, for example, in the US, some parts are like dry and deserty, like the West Coast, and then you have like the South, where you have like, or the East Coast, where you have like the storms that come in, or like the hurricanes. Like we had Hurricane Ian, like in Florida a month or so ago. So those are things you also want to think about. And I think I would say also, like, if you're applying for a scholarship, yes, you're looking for a scholarship. So you apply to all and everywhere, but then also, if you also happen to be self-sponsored, I think you should still use these principles. Just because you have the money doesn't mean you shouldn't, like, take the time to invest, because education is actually an investment. So you want to make sure you're investing your time, your money in a course and in a university and an experience that would, yield returns, so to speak. So like the kind of university, kind of courses, the kind of opportunities and access. For some places as well, like, you pay for the kind of alumni network you have access to, for example, like the Harvards and Stanfords of this world, So just thinking about things like that. In North America, there tends to be, I guess because it's a bigger country, and there's a lot of federal funding, there tends to be more opportunities for master's students, like graduate students. And I think for the US, most universities in the US, it's about 2 years. So you have 2 years. And at least from the STEM perspective, they're usually like research focused. You do lots of research alongside coursework, but there's a lot of research. Whereas in the UK, you tend to have like more of like the postgraduate taught versus like, you also have postgraduate research as well. So those are things I would say, like Dr. Orode said, like applying that same level of commitment and hard work, whether you're self-funded or you're looking for a scholarship, whether it's a master's or a PhD, whether it's a job after, graduate school, these same principles apply. So yeah, that's it.
Okay. If there are any questions posted, we're going to round up now. I hope that we've been able to give you a general introduction to our journey so far. We'll do more Saturday lives and hopefully, if time permits, workshops on research proposals and CV. But if you want for your CV to be checked, you can visit the SS Mentoring Shop and just book a session. And either Dr. Tochi or I will review that. If it's outside the area of our expertise, we have a network, and I could also share it with someone else who would look through, maybe, for example, if it was in technology or something like that. So that can support people as well. Aside that, is there anything we said we're going to talk about that we haven't talked about?
Like, we have to be really structured, because if not, like, you talk about the journey of 4 or 5 years, like.
No, we can't do that.
Yeah, I know. So, but just something that you mentioned that I just wanted to reiterate, especially when you're like on the other side, you look back on things, you're like, you're reflective, you're happy, you're grateful. But then, like, a PhD journey is like, it's challenging, even searching for a PhD or searching for a postgraduate position, like, they're all challenging. And just wanted to reiterate something that Dr. already said, like, you put it in the commitment, you put it in the hard work, but sometimes, it's just life. You receive rejection. But the most important thing is that while you're chasing, like, we're all human beings, and human beings, like me, we're multifaceted. We have our family life, we have our education, we have our spiritual life, we have our work. So this is just like one aspect of your life. So maybe just because it's not going well right now doesn't mean that it's not ever going to go well. And just like an encouragement that while you're chasing the scholarship, while you're chasing like your dreams, like, you also have other parts of your life that are working fine. And then also trying to like she was mentioning, okay, I was waiting for my visa, but I was also still like learning about like IT. So there are things that you're doing right now that it may not look like it, but then they're actually useful skills and things you can actually write about in your personal statement. Or you might feel like, I'm an undergraduate student, what hope is there in Nigeria for me or whatever? Like, we just came back from ASU strike, or this, that. But if you commit to excelling in that undergrad degree, people have used the same undergrad degrees or even masters to land scholarships, to land positions in other, like, outside the country, or to get fully funded scholarships. So it's just more like not belittling where you are, but as long as you keep committing and putting in the hard work where you are right now, like, you can always use those experiences. If it's like you're volunteering in a school, you put that in your personal statement. If it's that you're teaching kids, how to do this, or you're like you're maybe working in a professor's lab, like, maybe doing, it might be little things, but you're gaining that research experience. And those are the things you can actually feed into back, like, when you're like developing your applications. So it's more like just saying that as even though like things on a particular front don't appear maybe to be progressing right now, just keep going, because everything builds like to the like entire experience, or adds to the entire experience. That's what I would just want to say. And I'm thinking about, so now think this, me talking like it just reminds me of, I guess, when I met Dr. Orode and what she used to say. Because when I'm like, oh, I'm so tired, should I quit? Because I thought about quitting. I thought about quitting. Like, it's just like, I remember one Christmas 2016. I didn't go for holiday because I wanted my experiment to work. And then I came into lab on Christmas Day and it was so cold. And then the experiment didn't work. I was just deflated. And then, but I remember what Dr. Orode says, like, it's almost like this is like a journey, and no one's path is the same. Because you might be also looking at other people, not even before you start your PhD, like you might be looking at other people, oh, they've got a scholarship, they've gotten this. No person's path is the same. Everybody has their own path. So as long as you commit to hard work and you're focused on your own path, so that's just focus on what works for you, what you're doing right now. So I think one of the benefits I've had from my successful students mentoring experience is always like keeping my focus on my own lane, focusing on how I can do better, how I can be better, how I can position myself to attract, the job, or to attract, this award, or to apply for this. And yes, like one of the other benefits I have gotten from SS mentoring is that Dr. Orode always encouraged me to like apply for conferences. I remember, I think it was 2018. I was like, oh, this is the last year of my experiments, and I'm just going to cruise, or, I'm going to be done third year. My experiments are done. She's like, have you thought about the conferences you want to apply for this year? Start looking at it. Start applying for travel awards. Start doing this. Start doing that. So it was more like I came into school the first Monday of the year, like cruising. Oh, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm in third year and all of that. And then like the end of the year, I started looking up all the conferences I wanted to attend. I think that year I attended like 2 or 3 conferences, and I won at least 2 or 3 awards. So it's more like she helps you keep your eye, like keep your focus on what is most important, like keep your focus on your journey, and also not just like, okay, yes, I'm here, so what, but then also making sure that you excel and make the most of every opportunity that comes your way. So those are the 2 things, some of the benefits that I've had from SSM. I've also had like direct coaching, like preparing for like presentations, preparing for like science outreach competitions where I won People's Choice Award for like the university's 3-minute thesis. So it's been a very fruitful and rewarding mentoring experience with Dr. Orode, I have to say. So yeah, that's it for me. Yeah.
Awesome. Wow. Do you know how I'm just laughing because I'm just thinking back, and it's amazing that Tochi has all these jewels inside her. So I think you've used the right word, it's coaching. And she will go for this conference and she'll come back, she'll win an award. Or she'll start being more recognized in the university, which is fantastic. Because I always think, sometimes I think, what did I not do when I was at that level? This person can do it. So if you look back and you're like, oh, I should have done that teaching course, which is something she's yet to do. I should have done that teaching course. I was like, when I remember that I should have done it, reflecting back, I'm like, okay, this person can do it. So you go and do it. You go and win. Win-win is our watchword in one of our main phrases in SS mentoring. Win-win. We just thank God. And thank you for being a part of tonight. We're going to continue these sessions Saturday live. We're going to continue. Tochi has become a very busy madam. And me balancing, I'm doing another course now. Well, 2 actually. And then working at the same time. But by the grace of God, we're here. Renewed strength. And reaching out to more people and helping people achieve their career dreams, academic and career dreams. So if you have any questions, just send them to, what's the email we're using now? Is it Successful Student Guide? Should we use that one? Yes, okay, I'll post it now. Successful, if you want to get in touch, you can go to successfulstudentguide@gmail.com. I'm just going to put it on Facebook and YouTube, or the direct message to Instagram @SS Mentoring. You'll find it there. That's usually a good way. And then you can direct it to members of the team to help you out. So I hope you've had a lovely evening or afternoon, morning, wherever you are. A good day. God bless you, and we will see you another Saturday, not next Saturday. We'll put it on the Instagram. Another Saturday is probably going to be a monthly thing. But we'll see you at another Saturday. If there's something you want us to cover, tell us on Instagram or Facebook, whichever, and we will talk about that. All right? God bless you. Tochi, any last words? Dr. Ozulumba, I always call her Dr. Ozulumba.
Yeah, thank you all for joining and watching. Like she said, if you have any questions, do let us know. You can also go, and I think there are like some older videos on the channel as well that people can. So like if you wanted maybe like answers to certain things, you can also learn from perspectives shared in like older videos as well. But yeah, I wish you all the best. We'll all get there on the other side. So yeah. You're muted.
Bye, everybody. keep the dream alive and keep being your best. Tochi's laughing
Okay.
at me because I was muted. All right. Good night. Bye.
All right. Bye.